Hello and Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to episode number 13 of the Volunteer Spotlight, now brought to you by Aftersight. Before we get into this episode, there are a couple of things I would love to get out of the way first. As I'm sure most, if not all of you know, January 8th, the Audio Information Network of Colorado has rebranded to Aftersight, which is incredibly exciting for all of us here. It is a much easier name to pronounce, and it has helped our show numbers. We've noticed as of this week that the number of folks listening to our shows has it almost looks like doubled, if not tripled in some ways, which is incredible for us. So thank you to everybody out there listening and liking and leaving comments and sharing with friends and family. You guys are really helping our numbers and helping our shows grow and thrive and helping us get the information out there. So thank you so much, everybody. A couple of years ago, Penn Street, the host of what is now known as The Blind Chick, interviewed an awesome gentleman named Bill Lundgren, who is I'd like to introduce him as a licensed psycho because that's what he calls himself, but he is actually he is a licensed psychotherapist, and he is totally blind. And yes, he was on Aftersight and got to tell his story about his journey into vision loss and how he became a psychotherapist. So before you guys listen to this episode, I would strongly recommend that you go way back in time to 2021. In fact, we're looking at episode 10 of Aftersight, where you can listen to his story. And later on, we hired on Jonathan Price as our podcast producer, and then we started to create more Aftersight originals, including Blindsight, and Bill Lundgren happens to be the host of that podcast. Bill, how are you doing today, and how has your new year been?
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be on, and I was very honored to have this privilege. But it feels a little strange to be a guest again instead of hosting and figure, okay, what's my next question? Okay, where do I take this? Because that's in your hand, not mine.
Yeah,
and that means I have to give up control, which is impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bill, there are always a couple of really fun questions we like to ask our volunteers to spice up the show a little bit. What, Bill, is your very favorite wintertime activity to do?
Well, I love to go skiing, but I haven't had any opportunity to do that for a while because, a lot of other commitment. But I think what I really look forward to is taking the dog out, and particularly when there's snow and he's wanting to go run all over the place. And of course, he's on a leash with me. So when people say, are you taking the dog for a walk? I said, no, he's taking me.
Nice. Yeah, may I ask, is he a guide dog?
Yeah, he's a guide dog. I've sort of learned with him that, I have the illusion of of being in control. And he's made it real clear to me that he's in control. So I say, okay, fine. So he guides me.
Awesome. Love him.
Yeah. He's a 3/4 black lab, 1/4 golden.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just about to ask that.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
And it's a wonderful combination because he's very bright, almost too bright, especially when I'm trying to figure out, well, how did he get me here where I was supposed to be? Because I think I know where we're going, but I say, okay, you're in charge.
Yeah, definitely sounds like your dynamics match perfectly.
Yeah.
Indeed. Last up, who is the most inspirational figure in your life?
That's kind of difficult for me to think who's the most inspirational because there's been many people who I've come in contact with, and sometimes inspirational in terms of a religious way or a a singer that particularly strikes me. So, yeah, I'm just very fortunate to come in contact with a lot of people in
Absolutely.
different walks of life. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And they just inspire you to do what you like to do and what you want to do every day.
Right.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Well, I figured we could give listeners just kind of an abridged version of the story of how you became a licensed psycho. So yeah, can you, let's kind of start there. What made you decide you wanted to become a licensed psychotherapist in the first place?
Well, I was in another career when I got the information. I knew there was something wrong with my eyesight, and I was finally found someone who kind of agreed there must be something wrong. So he had me take one of those electroretinograms, and that's where they put
like electrodes.
Isotopes on the eyeball. And then for what I thought was an ungodly amount of time, they flash lights on, and they map what your retina picks up. And they forgot to tell me, this was a while ago, they forgot to tell me not to drink the night before. So I went in there with a roaring hangover. And, they were lucky I didn't upchuck on their delicate equipment. But it said very clearly that I was going to lose my sight. And because I was doing what I was doing, I didn't, it was marketing and I didn't like it. I thought, this is a call to me to get out of it and do something I really enjoyed. And at that time, I'd been doing a lot of work in the addiction field.
Gotcha.
And just to, I had worked for a drug company, and they asked me to learn all about addiction, which I did. And I loved being in that kind of work with those kinds of people. And I said, well, maybe I'll do something in this field because I like it so much. And I eventually got a job as an executive director with my marketing experience of a drug and alcohol agency. And I learned pretty quickly that, that really isn't my thing. I did well, but I got training as a counselor. And I loved that. And then when I left the agency, I was able to open a private practice because we weren't doing that much in terms of addiction counseling for licensing. And I started working in that area, and then I realized that I did need to get a license, and I went back to school full time and continued my practice. Got credentialed, took the licensing exam, and now here I am. All these years later, I've been doing it constantly and loving it every minute.
Absolutely. May I ask how long that practice has been going?
Well, right now I'm winding it down. I'm just, I'm coming to the realization that I'm getting older, and I especially realize that first thing in the morning when I get up and, creak over, to the bathroom, wash my face, and I say, okay, enough. And I'm still working with a few people, but that's winding down, and I'll be officially retired. But at the same time, when you all came to me with the idea of the podcast, I said, oh, this is a better way for me to continue to teach, if you will, and work with people without the responsibility and dealing with insurance companies and so forth. So that I just said this is a natural fit.
Absolutely. What was that like when you very first became the host of Blind Sight? What was your very first episode like to produce?
Well, Jonathan suggested to me that I introduce myself to the audience. And he said, if you only take, 10 minutes, that's fine. And I said to Jonathan, Jonathan, you don't know me very well, do you? And I think it was a 45-minute episode because as I told you, I somehow, somewhere along the line, I learned the gift of gab. And I certainly expressed it. And I guess, fortunately, I don't think I've lost any listeners because of my gab. So something must be working.
Absolutely. Yeah, talking of gab, there was something you'd mentioned earlier before we started recording about kissing a rock, which I know sounds random, but I'd like to talk about that because it was really fascinating.
Well, those of you who know Irish tradition may know of what is called the Blarney Stone. And I never knew about it till I went to Ireland. But there's Blarney Castle in Ireland. And what you're supposed to do is go up into the tower, very high off the ground. And what you do is you lean back over thin air and you have somebody hold your legs. And you're supposed to make your way to the Blarney Stone, which is like, there's like a hole. And you're in the hole, and you're moving towards the outside of the tower, and then you kiss the Blarney Stone, and that gives you the gift of Blarney. And Blarney is, it's a word we use for people who do a lot of gabbing, and may even talk about things they have know nothing about. So I kissed the Blarney Stone, and I've had the Blarney ever since.
That's awesome. Never heard of it before, but really cool.
What I'm told by other people who've been to Blarney Castle is that I don't think it's sanitary. And, when you're younger, you don't pay attention to that.
Yeah, of course not. Often, you take things for granted, you're
right. Absolutely. And you can't imagine consequences. You just go, they tell you to kiss the Blarney Stone. So you kiss the Blarney Stone. Then you, yep.
Yeah. And you don't think about how many other people have possibly kissed that stone too. How many hundreds of kisses that stone's had.
And how far up from the ground the stone is. And you've got to trust somebody is holding your legs.
Absolutely. Well, after you introduced yourself on Blind Sight, how did that show? How did you first start out on Blind Sight? What topic did you cover first? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm trying to remember. I think I'm trying to remember whether we had a number of guests.
Yes, indeed.
That we started with different. Some of them were a couple of them were friends of mine. Others were people that Jonathan found for the show, and we continue that. We go on the air. Usually, I get something beforehand. If I don't know the person, Jonathan sends me a pre-recording he's made of talking with the person, which kind of gives me a sense of what we're going to be talking about and who the person is, and then. Once we're on the air, then anything, we'll take it wherever we need to go.
Exactly.
Now, there have been times when, for some reason, a guest has to cancel at the last minute, or during holidays, it's hard to get somebody to schedule. So what Jonathan and I do is we discuss what kind of topic would be helpful, like. During the holiday season just passed, we talked about he and I, and Jonathan is savvy about mental health issues. So between the two of us, I have trouble just talking for a half hour without like lecturing.
Yeah.
So what I like is Jonathan and I talk about a topic like depression, or like we'll talk about I think one of the recent shows was on New Year's resolution and what works and what doesn't. So we take different mental health topics and we talk about it, as well as, like last week, we had someone on who is blind. We try to get a lot of blind professionals because people don't know that there are other people besides me who are working as professionals and are blind. And so consequently, the person Amy, and she has started a program for helping with prevention of assault and dealing with aggressive personalities, especially because people can't feel like they can get away with being aggressive with someone who has blindness. So we talked about her program, and I certainly hope that people are paying attention to it, because in the blindness community, we have women with disabilities in general have an 84% chance of being sexually assaulted, which I think is terrible.
It is.
And so one of the things we will look at is how to tell people where to go to get some training, or how to prevent something like that from happening, because that's part of mental health.
Absolutely. Well, in all of the episodes of Blindsight that you've produced thus far, is there one particular episode that has stood out to you more than other episodes?
That's tough for me, because each one is different, and each one is
it's a little unique in its own way, right?
Yeah, unique, and also just I know that my guests put their heart and soul in the presentation. It isn't boring. I don't want to have that kind of thing.
Of course.
And so we, like you and I are doing right now, to dialogue, to talk about from where we are. I think one of the programs we had on forgiveness was something that I think was particularly useful. It was a spiritual counselor that I had met at the church that I go to. And she came on, and she was wonderful. We had a couple of sessions. And I've had a friend of mine who's a historian talk about blind history. So in so many ways, it's been really great to have that kind of variety, and to allow people to learn a little bit about a lot of things. That's what we're trying to do, and make it in a way that it's not pedantic, that it's not boring and lecture kind of thing, but to, like you and I are doing, to dialogue and talk from our perspective.
Absolutely. And that's really what, at least from what I've seen, that is really what kind of helps keep the show flowing and keeps it engaging.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't want to have a boring program.
I don't think anybody does.
Yeah. Well, and I think we've been pretty fortunate in that people, the guests we've had on, and I think that between Jonathan and I, we, it gets very lively.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I hope that we can keep going with that, because as soon as it gets boring for me, I'm out of here, frankly, because everybody else will be out of here. It would be great if people would tell us of some things that they may want to hear. And we've got the feedback line now, and we have they can do it on email as well.
Absolutely.
And so they can give us some feedback, and that's when it becomes a dialogue between us and our listeners, which is great.
Absolutely. And the feedback line, we'll talk about that at the end, was a recent addition that we've added, but it has definitely been pretty successful in getting us some more questions and some more leads for episodes. Sure. Absolutely.
And I really was very grateful to whoever, all the powers that be, to change the name of the organization, because it took me almost a full year when I introduced people. I would say sponsored by oh, Jonathan, what's the name? What's the name of this organization?
Yeah, it took me
And
a
it was,
while too. And it's not
yeah,
and people were like
it's a
mixing the name
mouthful,
up.
right? So now, just to say, oh, sponsored by Aftersight, or tell people to look up Aftersight on their computer or get the website, and to be able to log into podcast episodes is so much easier.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, believe it or not, we are almost nearing the end of this episode already. Now, I'd like to take the time to give you the opportunity to ask me, Evan Starnes, any questions that you have personally about myself or about Aftersight.
Well, I am curious. You're new on the scene. Have you shared with people where you are coming from?
Where I'm coming from as an individual?
Yeah.
Yes, I have briefly. There is actually an episode, a really successful episode of Aftersight, now the blind chick, called Badge of Shame or Badge of Honor, that I was on with Penn Street. And I did get a chance to kind of share a little bit about myself and kind of how I got started here at Aftersight. But
Okay.
it's a bit unique too, compared to like, how you usually start a career. Typically, you graduate high school. If you're blind, low vision, at least in my case, I attended a training program, but, usually go to schooling or whatever and get a degree
Right.
or a certificate.
Right.
But, I started as an intern here, and that's actually kind of how I started my career. And like a lot of people, I picked one career in high school and, studied for it and realized, no, this is a drag. I don't want to do this. It was IT. And I kind of realized I'd much rather do audio. I thought it was a lot more fun.
Right. Well, see, that's similar to what I was saying. I started off with several careers before I said, oh, this is what I want to do.
Absolutely.
And we sort of learned. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you did the same thing.
Absolutely.
But why audio?
It's funny because I've been told that my ear is apparently really, really good, and it is. And in middle school, high school, and even as a child, I'd love to mess around with audio equipment. And at one point, it was cassette recorders, and then eventually it became digital recorders, and then eventually it became messing with like programs like Audacity on the computer. And, I kind of just, out of pure boredom, I just began messing with this stuff and taught myself a lot about, good audio and how to produce it and how to get what I want out of the various programs. And honestly, too, this is going to be a little random, but audiobooks. I love to listen to audiobooks. And they kind of influenced me in my production abilities in a certain way.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm very grateful for audiobooks. But I'll tell you, it really, audio equipment, computers, iPhones, I have all of that. But I'm of the generation that's still used to using clay tablets. It's just, I have to call people and say, hey, how do you do this? And I just, that's the hardest part. And sometimes we've had some technological problems, of course, when we're doing recording of this podcast. And, if it weren't for Jonathan's vast knowledge, we wouldn't even have it working. And yours. So, that's good to have some people who know what they're doing.
It's wonderful. It really is. It's a blessing to have all these folks to work with, and
right.
Just amazing people.
Well, I think that's the thing that I'm very grateful for as a volunteer is that I've got people that I can rely on. When I screw up, I've got some backup. I've got some people who will come in and help out. And, I've got, and they're people that I've gotten to know as friends as well as, professional colleagues here in Aftersight. And that's what makes all of this much more enjoyable than just going in and doing this thing and then going home or whatever. It is that camaraderie, that friendship, and having people that you can rely on for answers to your question.
Absolutely. And it really does. It makes a difference in just how you work and function. Well, is there any last minute things you would like to tell the audience before we wrap stuff up here on VSL?
Well, I don't know whether this may be something that they're interested to know, that partially because of the podcast, I've gone back to what I did for a while, and that is to be more an advocate for the disability community. And I'm in the midst of putting together a presentation for a conference in February to colleagues who are sighted, who are also a therapist, and trying to encourage them to be available to work with people with disabilities. Because a lot of times people are very intimidated by the fact that someone has a disability of any kind, and in that they don't feel comfortable working with them. And I want to kind of show them that it can be. And this is especially important because as of January 1st, Medicare is now covering mental health counselors like myself for reimbursement, and marriage and family counselors for reimbursement, which they haven't been able to get before. So there are more people out there who are able to render assistance to those people with disabilities who have family problems, couples problems, and mental health issues, to be able to get help and to be able to have an even better life.
Absolutely.
So I like to let people know that. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us today for the Volunteer Spotlight. I definitely hope you enjoyed it as much as I did producing it.
Yep, I certainly did.
Absolutely.
I'm really grateful for the opportunity, and it's nice to work with you.
Absolutely. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to episode number 13 of the Volunteer Spotlight. If you guys have any feedback or questions for any of our other podcasts, Blind Sight, Blind Chick, Blind Level Tech, Navigating Life with Vision Loss, you can always email feedback@aftersight.org with your questions or comments, or you can call 720-712-8856 and leave a voicemail. And hey, we might just play that voicemail on the air if you like. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope everybody is having themselves an excellent start to their new year, and I hope you guys are staying warm out there. Take care and have an amazing rest of your day.